House Democrats just passed the first major gun safety legislation in 25 years last month. Hundreds of survivors and families of gun violence victims are targeting Senate Democrats now, demanding that they get that bill to the Senate floor.
In a letter, the group writes this: "We are calling on every single senator who supports background checks to go to the body of the Senate and begin discussing the bold policies we need to build a future with fewer guns, and not stop until there is a vote."
And they mean business. Their message is, quote, "If you are going to call yourself a champion on this issue, you better act like it."
Oof. Joining us now is Fred Guttenberg, who delivered this letter himself to senators. His daughter Jamie tragically died last year in the Parkland shooting. Fred, always good to see you.
Hey, guys.
I wish one day we could talk about better topics, but alas, here we are. I want to start with this. To be fair, it's almost guaranteed that Mitch McConnell is never going to allow any Democratic-sponsored gun legislation to come to the floor. Republicans have done zero on gun safety for decades. Why do you think going after Democrats who don't have the power in the Senate, why are you going after them?
Well, you're right about Mitch McConnell, but I disagree about the Democrats. The fact that he won't bring it up for a vote doesn't mean they should remain silent. The more they speak, the more this becomes a voting issue in the next election. If Mitch McConnell and the Republicans won't do anything about it, then the Senate should flip over this. You know, the bullet that killed my daughter did not know if she was a Republican or a Democrat. It was a nonpartisan bullet. But the reaction to what happened has clearly been partisan. And I've said to you both from day one, I'll go after anybody who won't do the right thing. I don't care if they're a Republican or a Democrat. I expect the Democrats to take the lead on this if the Republicans won't. There are many in the Senate now who are running for president who have not said a word about the background check bill that passed the House. So you know what? I expect them to speak. I expect them to talk about this on the campaign trail. I expect them to tackle this. I don't care if it becomes controversial in certain voting states. Too bad. You want to run for president? Lead.
Yeah, it's controversial. It's controversial to you, right? You lost your daughter because of it. It is something that is important to talk about. What kind of reception are you getting? You went around to Senate Democrats' offices yesterday, particularly the 2020 candidates, to drop off your letter. Did you have any interaction with anybody when that happened?
We had interaction with staffs. I was hopeful, and it was actually 2 days ago that we dropped it off. I was hopeful that there might have been a follow-up from one of those senators, because I went to every single senator who is running for president in the Democratic Party. I was hoping one or two, maybe three of them would have stepped up. I also called out Beto O'Rourke, because in his announcement, he didn't say a word about it. But to his credit, yesterday, later in the day, he did tweet about the background checks. This is the simplest, easiest thing we can do to start tackling this problem. And I don't want good legislation now that gets done in the House to simply die in the Senate without a fight. Fight for this if you believe in it. And if you don't fight for this, then that's good for us to know, because we get to vote on it.
I know, too, this is not a partisan issue. Lindsey Graham, obviously a Republican senator, says his committee will consider what's called a red flag bill. That would allow courts to take away somebody's firearms after there have been warnings from police or family members. Does that give you any sort of sign that there are Republicans out there who are willing to take some sort of stand on gun legislation?
Well, you know what? I was really pleased to see that Senator Graham was doing that. While I was in D.C., prior to going, I reached out to his office to try and get an appointment. He was not able to do so, but they did commit to me that they would meet with me on my next visit. Let's see what happens in the hearings next week. Let's see who's on the witness list. Let's see how that conversation goes. I've heard Senator Graham talk about this before as something he'd like to tackle, and I'm going to take him at his word. You know, and once you start having hearings on gun safety, if this is where they want to start, great, but don't stop. You know, we have a gun violence death rate in this country right now of approximately 40,000 per year. I mean, while I'm doing this interview with you, somebody is learning they're a victim of gun violence, somebody is burying a victim of gun violence, and somebody's planning a funeral for a victim of gun violence. That's how bad this problem is. And so I'll work with anybody who wants to tackle it. I don't get my daughter back.
Yep.
But we got to start somewhere.
It's amazing that you will be on this crusade, because you won't get your daughter back, and that could destroy you, and no one would say anything about that, but that you are on this fight. Something else happened. On Thursday, Connecticut's Supreme Court ruled that Remington, the gun maker, could be sued over the way it marketed the rifle that was used in the Sandy Hook shooting, which is a type of rifle that's used in most of these shootings. Talk to me about what you think about that.
Oh, listen, I am thrilled. You know, the sting of accountability and liability will force these manufacturers to maybe start behaving more responsibly. Let's think about it this way. In the year my daughter was killed, Smith & Wesson, that made the gun that killed my daughter, manufactured almost $500,000 for private sale. And they were one of only several manufacturers that made large numbers like that. When you put millions of these on the street, the business executives who make the sales goals know one outcome of that is going to be dead innocent Americans. There's no way around it. So let's force them to talk about how they came out with those sales goals. Let's also force them to talk about how they market these weapons. You know, they like to talk about these as sport weapons being used by people who want to hunt and do sporting things. And, well, if they believed that for 1 second, then they would actually be taking the lead on gun safety measures, because they would want to prevent killers from getting these weapons.
Right.
But they're not doing it. They are pushing as many of these on the streets as they can, because it's about sales and profit. And you know what? Just like the tobacco industry one day had to admit the truth, which is their product was addicting and would kill you, these gun manufacturers are going to have to do the same as well. I have an active lawsuit against Smith & Wesson, and I will tell you what happened yesterday certainly gave me a lot of encouragement.
Where's your lawsuit? Where is it at this point?
Well, the Smith & Wesson filed a motion to dismiss, and my current lawsuit is actually seeking declaratory relief. What we're trying to say is PLCAA does not actually apply to the victims of gun violence. That's not the way the law is written, but it's been used against them. So we were seeking a declaratory judgment to have a judge certify that. Smith & Wesson filed a motion to dismiss. They sent about 15 attorneys to the hearing, which was just a small local hearing. Even the judge looked at their table and was amused, but they're afraid, because they know if these get any traction, it puts an end to the lie that they continue to tell the American people. Right now, we're waiting for the judge to rule on the motion to dismiss. And however that judge rules, I'm sure there will be an appeal. So, you know, it's baby steps, but I'm in this for the long haul.
Fred.
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long haul.
Fred, thank you so much for your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you to both of you for continuing to cover it. I really appreciate you.
We will. We continue to do that. I don't know how Fred does it. I mean, to be that, he's not asking for anything. You know, I'm a gun owner. He's not asking for unreasonable things.
It's either Fred's father or father-in-law is. It's not that Fred's anti-gun. It's not that many people from the Sandy Hook Promise are. But the way the AR-15s have been marketed, they're marketing it to disaffected young men. This is how you get your man card. This is how you show them how tough you are. Come on. Yeah. If you care about those disaffected young men, figure out how to bring them into a community and love them and make them part of something. Don't arm them with a weapon. That's not how you get your man card.